Hey, I'm the composer Andrew Lloyd Fry, and this video is an introduction to Bach. If you have some interest in him, his life, his music, and where to start with exploring his music. I mean, obviously, if you go on Spotify or something like that, there's like thousands and thousands of things to choose from, so kind of help direct you in that process of exploring Bach. So first, a little bit about his life. He was born in 1685 and died in 1750. So if we kind of compare that to like the American Revolution, like 25 years before America was a country. So obviously, what is that, like 350 so years old ago that he was living. And that's pretty rare for an artist to still be in the consciousness of the culture. I mean, it's very rare for an artist to have that kind of longevity. He came from a super musical family going back generations, but it was much more like civic and functional. So a lot of his family and him was doing like music directing for the church and leading choirs and funerals and weddings. It was much more of like a very functional type of music jobs that the Bachs had, and composing was not. There was some of that in his family line, but that wasn't like the dominant strain there. It was much more just like normal kind of like music jobs. So he grew up. He also, first job, started working for the church. He was an organist, and his whole career was very much civic types of music jobs. So again, working for the church, he had tasks assigned to leading the school choirs. He was not this like elevated composer who just got to write music. So he had a lot of functions, and it's crazy how much music he was able to write because he had other jobs. So at one point, literally in his job description is teaching a Latin class. He paid someone else to do that for him, but I mean, that's the kind of like scenario he was in, which is just like totally crazy. He also, crazy fact, had 20 kids. So he was married, his first wife died, and they had kids. Then he remarried, 20 total. A lot of them did not survive to adulthood. I'm not sure how many, but yeah, so he had 20 kids, which, I mean, 20 kids, I don't know how many survived, but his output is like ridiculous. And he had all those other jobs. I mean, he's like doing weddings and funerals, and it's unbelievable like what he was able to do. Okay, so next I just wanted to talk a little bit about his music, what's special about it, and even some thoughts on like how to listen. So a big piece of Bach's music is counterpoint, and if you don't know what that means, it just means that instead of thinking of like the chords as like this block and then the melody on top, we're thinking a stream of melodies combined. So that could be two melodies. He got crazy. It was like 5 melodies. So it's just a very different way to think about music. It's a lot harder to write. And it's a bit of it's almost like a puzzle, getting all of these elements to combine in a way that sounds pleasing and not chaotic. And he was kind of like the all-time master of that. So with his music, I think that if you're new to his music, a good kind of thought when listening is, because it's different, because there are so many simultaneous melodies, that you kind of have to go with a new expectation. And with harmony, it kind of creates, when there's like this real clear harmony, it kind of creates this thing you can like lock onto, and you can feel it cycling around. Now there is a harmony in his music, but it's it's like implied harmony or not fully there. And it just, yeah, because it's not so clear cut like harmony and melody. It's like everything's melody. So I find it helpful when listening to his music. It's almost like, which this is ironic, but it's almost like ambient music where you're not really latching on to anything because there's so much material. You're just like letting this like cascade of notes wash over you. And it's just like, you're not going to latch on because it keeps changing and keeps developing. And it's just like, it's like this note machine that just like keeps coming at you. So I think just making that little expectation shift is a helpful way to connect to his music. The other thing I want to talk about is if you dive much into Bach's music, you'll probably come across the word fugue, and just wanted to talk about what that is. So that is the simplest version to explain what that is it's like a round where one voice comes in with a theme, and then it goes off and does something else, and the second voice comes in on that same theme. So if you think about like row, row, row your boat. A fugue is a little bit more complicated, and there's a bit more to it, but that's the simplest kind of easy to latch on to definition. And he was like the all-time master of fugues. So that's, if you know that, you can hear the new voices come in. It's like, oh yeah, I heard that instrument or that line do that melody, and okay, yes, now I'm hearing it again. And just that little bit of knowledge, I think, really changes the music experience. And then the last thing, I just wanted to talk about 3 of his compositions. I think if you're new to Bach, these are really great places to start, and these are some of his most popular works. So his first one is the Unaccompanied Cello Suites. I have the one performed by Yo-Yo Ma. There's also a pretty famous one by Pablo Casals. I haven't specifically compared them. I think both are probably great. So I feel like everyone loves the cello. It's rich, it's deep, and I really like just it's just the cello by itself. So it feels like much more like vulnerable and much more synonymous to the human experience, just like, oh, we are ourselves, and with solo instrumental music, just like one voice, especially when it's not piano. I feel that like identification with it. The piece that really stands out on this is Suite number 1 in G major, the Prelude, and that's actually the first track on that album. It is very moving, very powerful. So check that one out. Next is the Goldberg Variations. I had the Glenn Gould version for a long time. I think it was recorded the 1958 or 59 version. This came out recently, and I assume it's Vikingur, the pianist. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I was surprised. I like this one better. So it's a little more rich. The sound of the piano in the Glenn Gould version is a little dry, and this one was just a little sweeter across the whole thing. And I thought, just because I had listened to this other version for like a decade, that everything else would just feel wrong, but I was surprised. So this is my recommendation. There's a bunch of versions of these, but the Goldberg Variation, this solo piano, by the way, is my favorite. And then lastly, one of my favorite pieces of music of all time, the Goldberg Variations. Now this is, I'm sorry, not the Goldberg Variations, the Brandenburg Concertos. So this is actually conducted by Pablo Casals, who was a cellist, and he performed the Unaccompanied Cello Suites. I have listened to different versions. This is my favorite. Not like a bunch, but I really like this one. This music is such a, such a beautiful explosion of sound and notes, and he's exploring every instrument in the orchestra and every combination. It's just like, and what's crazy about his music and the Brandenburg Concertos is it's like there's so much information. I mean, it's like just the amount of melodic information going on simultaneously is ridiculous, but it's not chaotic. It's like, I mean, he talked about music should be refreshing for the soul, and it's like, I don't know how you can pack in so much and it's still just like sweet and smooth and bright. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, so the Brandenburg Concertos, highly recommended. All right, it's time for you to go start listening.